All right, SML, welcome back to Battle at the Border. We got Finn's back. I think it's been just about a month or so since our last one. Um,
Yep.
but 27 to 13 was our last score. So we're going to see if we can turn that around, at least get it a little closer. But looking at some of these topics, I think you'll have a really good shot at turning it around this time.
Let's hope. Maybe I can get a win finally this cycle.
All right, so our first topic is going to be your thoughts on user tackling versus clicking off. Should you have to user tackle?
As an advocate, as a guy who doesn't click on very often, I'm going to say no. You shouldn't have to. In my vast experience of being on defense all the time, the negatives far outweigh the positives. The conservative tackle button doesn't work anymore. The X just doesn't. I don't know. EA just said, "Screw you guys. You have to dive now." So, and that if you get your angle wrong right away, you get that animation where the offensive player just basically runs through the diving guy, or you tend to tackle his shoulders and then you just roll off and it's a big gain. Especially you combine that with how overpowered and important change of direction is. If you have a guy like you or Foz or who else can do it, QP, I think that they can do that stop and go moves. If you bite on that first stop and go, you're done. Especially as a user tackler. But if you let the CPU make it, they don't fall for that. So I'm no, you shouldn't have to.
Okay. Yeah, I do feel like the user tackle is more difficult. But that's why I think you shouldn't. I don't have as much of a problem. Like I think you were talking about clicking onto a guy. So if the computer's already lined up, you don't click onto him and let him. The one I have an issue with, maybe it's not an issue. Maybe it's just to me it just seems like it's not cheesy, but kind of like a cop out. When you see a guy is usering someone and they're running right at you, and then they click off. So rather than making the tackle themselves, they click off, let the computer do it. I don't know. It just seems like a lack of skill or just a way to let the computer do it for you. Which in a game where you're playing user on user, I think anything that allows the computer to do it for you is kind of a cop out.
It's weird actually because I've always been a user catch guy. Like
Mm-hmm.
I will always click on and do that, and I didn't start doing it until I watched your game versus Coop
Yeah.
and how effective it was. And I was maybe I'm gonna copy that stoner and not do that, and it's actually worked out. I mean I haven't won yet, but I mean I'm not getting blown out. So I just think the way the game is coded now, there's no benefit to do it.
Yeah, it definitely is an advantage. I guess an advantage to let the computer do it. For the most part, if there's a missed tackle, it's usually the user doing it, not necessarily the computer. So I don't know. To me, it just seems like a kind of a cop out, just letting the computer do it. But
Right.
so we'll let the viewers decide on that one. I don't really have too much to argue either way on that one. I suppose that's a crappy topic. Um, but let's talk about this second one. I kind of like this topic. So we just had the redraft because EA can't put together a game in 2021 that can,
Rip.
function all the way through a franchise. So we had to restart, and only I think three teams kept their same team. So for the most part, and I don't think it was because their teams got taken ahead of them. A lot of people passed on their teams.
Right.
Do you think there's an advantage to keeping the same team after the redraft?
Um, I'm going to say no. I mean, I'm going to acknowledge that there's a little bit of an advantage because you have, like, you're familiar with personnel.
Mm,
Um, but even that isn't, I mean, everything's changed since launch. Like, there's been, I don't know how many roster updates, guys have been cut, traded, upgraded, downgraded. So, like, I mean, you're one of the guys that took them. Like, Swartz. I don't know if Swartz
yep.
is better or worse at launch, but I mean, he's still fast. So, um, his most important rating that we'll get into later is still there for you. I think like I said with personnel you have a kind of a leg up on roster holes that you can fill, but everyone in the league is a football fan anyway for the most part, I would assume. So I mean, I'm a Dolphins fan. I took the Bears right away. I know I have a lot of holes to fill. So there's that advantage in personnel isn't really like a huge advantage because everyone kind of knows the weaknesses of the rosters and strengths going in. So, no, I don't think there's much advantage to keeping it.
All right, so obviously I took the other side of this. I think there is an advantage, and not so much, player rosters changing. But if you look at guys that have switched teams, there's a lot of them that are kind of struggling right now. Dan lost to Paulie. Faz lost to Future. Guys that I think you look at DW, he's 0-4. He made the playoffs the first season with the Jets, and I think a lot of it is you have to adjust to a new style of playing after just 2 seasons that you just finished the second season. So it's not like there was that off-season break like we have between cycles where everybody's kind of starting fresh. You know what you want to do and how you want to play, and then you get a new team, and I think you're have like a little learning phase where you have to figure out your new team. But not just that. Having the Browns for a second time going through season 1, I've been able to kind of right some wrongs, maybe stuff that I didn't really like with my roster moves, like trading a first for Ioannidis. I never really felt like I got a first worth of production from him. So getting a do-over, I just said, you know what, I'm going to keep that first. I'm not going to trade for him. It also helped with Kareem Hunt. First season, I traded Kareem Hunt for a first-round pick. I traded Njoku for a first-round pick. I regretted not keeping Njoku because of the speed and the change of direction. I liked Hooper, but going forward, I think Njoku is better. So I was able to change that up. I traded Hooper, got a second, and I still traded Hunt for a first. I didn't even have to negotiate for the first because Coop immediately went in saying, I know what the price is. I just saw you trade him. So,
Right.
It made it a little easier. And then I could kind of right my wrongs. Any contracts I didn't like, I could kind of have a second shot at either not re-signing a guy or maybe picking up a guy like Malik McDowell that I let walk initially and then saw what he did with Jace Move and the Raiders. And I said, you know what, maybe I'll just re-sign him. So I think there is a little bit of an advantage, especially because you know the team and you can kind of redo things you didn't like as well the first time. And it's almost like you got to try it before you buy it.
Were there any players on the Browns that, besides Beckham, I guess, that, were important to your team that were gone after, after the blip, I guess we can call it?
If you're talking from the base roster, Beckham was the only one that was really gone. That was a major key piece, but a lot of guys went up. So you had Delpit went up, Njoku went up, Myles Garrett went up like 3 speed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There was a decent amount of guys went up. Baker went back, but he didn't really lose anything in throw power or accuracy that was a big deal. So roster-wise, they were probably about the same. If you lose Beckham, lose a couple for Baker, but you go up in other areas, roster was fairly similar.
Right. It just sucks because for you, the another disadvantage, I guess, was the fact that, you couldn't trade Beckham. Like you could have he walked for nothing. So like you could have traded him and got an asset for that. But that sucks. And you look at the Raiders too, the Raiders lost Javin White. So that sucked too. So I don't know. I just think with the changes, some team, it hurt. I think it might have hurt more teams than it did help them.
So you're saying there would have been an advantage to keep the same team?
No. I'm saying.
Okay.
No. I'm saying Raiders got worse. I don't know if Beckham, made your team worse, but you could have got something for him, right?
Yeah.
So you just lost assets for nothing. That's all.
Yeah, I think my argument is more. You know what you're doing with the team, and you get a second go around through, so you can redo what worked and kind of skip what didn't work. So I think that was an advantage. You got Grams. I didn't see him trade Van Der Esch season 1 this time. Now, granted, he said he's in a better cap space because they got rid of Jalen Smith, and maybe that hurts his defense. But you don't see him making the same moves. Now, he did complain that Tiny wouldn't make the same trades Figs makes, which not many people do. But so maybe he's not as happy. Obviously, he was going to take the Cowboys regardless, but maybe he doesn't have the advantage. But you can see him making different moves. probably learning what did and didn't work the first go
Right.
around. And then ZZ,
Right.
he had the Texans picked near the bottom, so it wasn't like he had many choices, and he went with his hometown team. But the same thing, he knows what he wanted to maybe do different from those first two seasons, and now he gets the opportunity to do it instead of trial by fire again with a new team.
Yeah, yeah, he lost Philip Lindsay, right?
He did, yeah.
So
Um,
interesting.
so speaking of guys taking new teams, then topic 3: do you think Prime regrets taking the Colts? Obviously, he started 2-2. He's lost to Double Rice No Beans, and he lost to Mike in an absolute blowout. It was a bad loss to Mike. So do you think he regrets taking the Colts?
Oddly enough, I do actually, and I think it comes down to two players in particular: Carson Wentz and the lack of a player like Honey Badger on defense. Um, Carson Wentz is awful. I mean, I like he's got 5 touchdowns, 11 picks. I know 8 of those picks came against Mike, but he just can't seem to make any throws. Like I don't know if Prime was like I mean, sorry, I do know because I watched the game. Like Prime was forcing it, and you know I think a lot of those throws Mahomes makes, Wentz just can't do it. So that adjustment is huge. Like you just mentioned, you know, a lot of guys didn't have time to adjust to the new rosters,
Mm-hmm.
the GOAT included, right? And then you look at what Prime did with Honey Badger in KC. Like that man, like I think he almost had 20 interceptions one season.
Yeah.
Like he was just, like, you just leave him on that side of the field, he just shuts it down on his own, and that's a huge, you know, difference. Like the Colts have some pieces on defense, but they don't have a Honey Badger, especially in the back end. So I think those 2 players alone make the Colts. I mean, he doesn't have to build from running back now. Like Taylor's incredible. Taylor would have got a massive bump, I would assume. So he doesn't have to worry about that. But Prime also just likes to sling it, and he can't do that right now. So I think, yeah, he's regretting it.
See, I don't think he's regretting it, and I think it's kind of twofold. Number one, I think when he picked the Chiefs, it sounded like it would be a lot of fun, and maybe he did enjoy it for the first season or so. But I think not having the Colts and his favorite team, I think that kind of bothered him, or at least made him miss having the Colts. Just the fact that somebody else had his favorite team out there. And then the second thing, I think Prime likes the team building. I think he likes to take a team from, you know, not so great in the Colts and then build them up to be something better. And in Kansas City, you just had to maintain it. There wasn't really much to do with that team. Maybe build up the defense a little bit, but you look at the guys he had, Matthew, Thornhill, Benton. It wasn't anybody, or Fenton, I think was his name.
Betting you.
It wasn't like it was something he had to build up. It was just pretty much keep winning, do your training, and these guys are going to turn into a pretty good team. So I think he misses the team building. The struggling, I don't think it bothers him too much early. You look at last cycle, and he started off same thing, kind of snuck into the playoffs. Not even snuck in. I mean, he was a solid playoff team, but he didn't win the division, didn't win a ton of games to where he was like, you know, 14-2, 13-3. I think he had like 5 or 6 losses. But he had I think it was Eason was his quarterback then. And it's the same thing now. He's got Wentz, but I don't think Wentz is going to be the quarterback that he goes with long term. He's going to get a rookie or a really young guy, and then he's going to develop them throughout the cycle. And by the end, they're going to be a superstar X factor, and he'll have played in or won multiple Simbardis. It's just kind of the script that you see every time for him. And I think going with Kansas City, it just didn't feel right to him. Maybe it was fun, you know, for a season to play with Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, those big weapons. But I think at the end of the day, I think he regretted not taking the Colts the first time, and the redraft was almost kind of a welcome thing. I mean, obviously, we would like to keep going with the cycle as it was, but I think it almost was like a silver lining for him that he got to take the Colts and kind of right that wrong.
So does that lead us to another topic where did Prime cause the blip? Did he regret not taking the Colts and let Dan seem like he ruined the franchise only so he can get the Colts
That
back?
could be. I mean, maybe it was known that if you switch owners of the franchise right before the draft, that it would crash. I don't know. That might be a conspiracy theory topic to look into in the future.
There we go.
But so we just talked about Prime losing to double rice no beans. So I guess the question is, sitting at 4-0, is double rice no bean for real? He didn't even make the playoffs either of the last two seasons, and now suddenly he's 4-0 and at the top of the AFC South. Is he for real?
I'm gonna say no, and I love Beam. He's a good dude. He does a lot for the league. And I mean you can only play your schedule, but he's playing teams that are struggling right now. He beat NYT, who's 1-2, I think currently. Prime's, we just talked about Prime struggles. He's playing a Spooky. He beat Spooky, who lost his first two, but now has won his next two. So I don't know, man. If you look at his team, he's two players are basically doing it for him: Henry and Julio Jones. Julio Jones has a very interesting stat right now. So Julio Jones has 7 catches for 270 yards and 3 scores. No other receiver on Tennessee has over 81 yards. So clearly he's getting big. I think he's averaging 38 yards a catch with Julio Jones. So if you can bracket him and then somehow contain Henry, I think you're going to be just fine for him. I mean, he's got a favorable schedule moving forward. Doesn't have a lot of big hitters. He seems to kind of avoid. I don't think he plays you. I don't think he plays QP. Like, he misses a lot of the big guys in the AFC. So I think he's definitely going to be a playoff team this year. But until he beats one of the big guys, and I know Prime's a big guy, but Prime's struggling right now. I'm going to say no.
All right. Well, I'm gonna say yes. I think you said Julio Jones has 200 and something receiving yards. He's actually got 400, so it's even a bigger. He's got 452.
Oh my God! Okay.
You may have got your stats right before he played KJ, and I think he dropped like another 180 on KJ.
Oh my God! Okay. Yep.
So his average has actually dropped. It's down to 34.8 yards per catch.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah. So, but yeah. So the topic was, is he for real? And he's got the number one scoring offense, or at least puts up the most points. I don't know if it's all from his offense. He's got a bunch of touchdowns on defense. He's got like 12 interceptions. But he's scoring 41 points per game, which is first in the league. I believe 41 points per game is on pace to set the record for highest scoring offense in a season as well. And then to go with that, though, he's only given up 25 points per game, which is 11th best in the league. So he's playing well on both sides of the ball. And then you mentioned that, A.J. Brown is next with 81 yards receiving. But those 81 yards receiving all came in the one game when he played. He was actually injured the other 2 games. So A.J. Brown would probably be his number 2 guy. It would probably be spread out more. He does have, no one else over 100, and you can see by the receptions it's pretty well spread out. Like, he's looking for that number 2 guy and just can't seem to find him. But at the end of the day, he's scoring 40 plus points per game. He's only given up 25, and he is playing some teams that maybe aren't the greatest. NYT is struggling, but maybe NYT's just playing solid teams like Double Rice No Bean, and that's why he's sitting where he is. And then you've got Spooky. I know Spooky's sitting at 2-2. One loss was to Bean, but the other 2 wins that he had, he's playing really good defense. And what did the Titans do? Put up 44 points on him. So it's not like he's, with the sample size the way it is, it's tough to say that he's playing guys that aren't good because half their losses right now are to him. So it's not like a huge sample size. Now, obviously, if you go historically, Spooky's not a guy that wins a ton of games. NYT's usually about a 500 guy, but just last season he was in the NFC Championship. So it's not like we can just necessarily count him completely out because he starts with 2 losses. Maybe the guys that are beating him are actually playing pretty well. So I think he's for real. And as long as he's got Derrick Henry, That's really all he needs anyway. He's averaging almost 9 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns, 587 yards. So I don't see any reason for him not to be for real.
Yeah, I kind of took it to kind of piggyback on your point last time. He's just kind of taking advantage. I think he's taking advantage of teams are getting used to their owners getting used to their new teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I mean, like maybe he just adjusts better. He seems like a youngster who has more time to play on the game. So maybe he has Titans in one of his 8 leagues, and he knows how well they play. Who knows?
All right, so talking about taking advantage of things, does speed matter? We saw ZZ give up a number 1 pick, which is likely to be top 5. I mean, he's not exactly lighting the league on fire. Just lost to Woods. He gave up we'll say top 10 just to be safe, but a top 10 pick in the draft to get John Ross. He's like a 72 overall, but 96 speed. I think he did get Paulie's first in return, but Paulie's undefeated, so that pick's not going to be that great. And then you got Fig, gave up his first in the next 2 drafts to get Quez Watkins, 97 speed, but just a normal dev guy, 23 years old. And then Paris Campbell, I think 95 or 96 speed, normal dev, 24 years old. Nothing really stands out about these guys in these trades other than their top end speed. And guys are giving up first round picks that we're talking about, top 10, top 5 possibly. Some of them maybe top 2. So do you think speed matters?
I think it matters a bit, but I think the QB and the owner matter more. Like, I think arm strength and the person who's using them matter way more. Sorry, one sec. Pardon me. Way more than the actual player. Like you look at, and I think route running is probably the more important stat this year than speed. If you're lucky enough to have because there's only 6 QBs that have more than 94 throw power. So those guys can out throw coverages, right? Like if you're lucky enough to have Allen, Mayfield, Mahomes, Wilson, Stafford, or Herbert, you can out throw your coverage all the time. So the rest of us have to kind of, have to throw drags, slants, whatever. And, if you're playing a player like you, Dan, someone who's really good on defense, it's going to be mitigated. But if you look at what, Foz did with guys like Diggs, right? Diggs isn't overly fast, but his route running is incredible. So I think while it matters to some, like I have Goodwin and, guys like me who aren't good force the ball to him. So it's easy to play defense against guys like us because, when you're playing guys like Fig, it's going to the speed guy. So if you can cover that guy, it's not going to relate into a lot of wins. But if, guys who can actually make reads on the field, so the owner makes a more difference in my opinion.
All right. So I think you absolutely have to have speed, especially the way the game plays. If you don't have somebody that can stretch the field, and even if you have that, the Joe Burrow, Mac Jones, these Jalen Hurts, these quarterbacks that aren't necessarily able to make those throws every time, I think just having the threat of it matters. You look at the guys near the top. We'll just look at the receivers in the top 10 right now for receiving. 3 of them, Anthony Schwartz, John Ross, and Mecole Hardman, are 3 of the faster receivers in the game. So I don't think it's any coincidence that they're also 3 of the top yardage receivers in the game. And Schwartz and Ross, neither of them, I don't even think Schwartz, I think, is a 69 overall. Ross is like a 72. Hardman, I think, might be a little higher at 78. So they're not like the route running receivers. They're not the best at catching even. Their attributes are all fairly low outside of that speed attribute, and that seems to be enough to get them into the top 10 of receiving. And none of them, you look at Hardman, 16 catches, Ross 11 catches, Schwartz 13 catches. They're not higher than most of the guys around them. You got Logan Thomas is there at 5 with 17. Waller at 16, and this noticing a trend of tight ends. Andrews 15, Kyle Pitts 27. A lot of the tight ends seem to be the more used guys, but even them, the tight ends on that list are all the faster tight ends too. You've got Gesicki, OJ Howard, Elijah Moore. They're all 16, 15, 12, 16, 9. So it's not like these guys are leading the league in receiving just because they get targeted a bunch. They're just, the speed matters, and they're getting deeper plays, and they're just scoring. Schwartz 6 touchdowns, Ross 4 touchdowns, Hardman only 2, but he's also got Mariota throwing to him, so that could be a problem for Pittsburgh. So I can see where your quarterback thing comes in, but I think speed absolutely matters. You talked about Faz last season, and he did a lot with Diggs. You remember who his number 2 receiver was?
Oh, Tutu Atwell.
Tutu Atwell, who's a speed guy. He was a rookie. He wasn't really highly rated. I think he might have been like a 71 or something at the time. So even though he's got Stephon Diggs, he goes out and he gets Tutu Atwell to throw to, because he's got speed and he can develop. And that's the thing too. I think with a lot of these guys, you can develop them. So as long as they have that speed, that's the one trait or the one attribute that doesn't necessarily go up a lot. Your route running, you can do one of those archetypes that ups the route running and they'll go up. You can do the catching ones that do catching traffic. That'll go up, release. But the one thing you can't really pick one specific archetype to upload or upgrade is speed. There's nothing for that. It's just luck of the draw. So I think a lot of guys want to start with that and then just build the guy from there. But as long as he has speed, then you can make something out of him.
Yeah, I mean, I get the point that you need to kind of take the top off a defense, but I think that's where the owner makes the difference, right? Like, I mean, Schwartz, you put Schwartz on the Pats, and I don't think he has the same stats, right? You also you got Mayfield, who can, I mean, the one long TD, he scored 2 long TDs against me. Mm-hmm. The one long TD he scored against me, I was in cover 4, I was on the safety, I played off, and I shaded over the top. And he still outthrew everybody. That one almost made me through my controller. But, yeah. So yes, it does matter. But I think it doesn't matter. Like, I think it's overrated.
I'll agree with that. I think some guys will overpay for speed. Like we talked about, the first round picks. Yeah. I think that's an overpay. But at the same time, I think you're at a severe disadvantage if you don't have a guy like that on your team. Like you said, Schwartz had 2 deep ones. One was just a streak. He just got behind everybody, and I think that's the one you're talking about.
That's the one I'm talking about, yeah.
The other was a deep cross, and by the time he got across the field, I think he had 4 or 5 yards on the guy, and so he was able to turn it upfield, and he was gone. And I think just having that threat, you have to sit back. You have to watch that with your user, and it maybe opens up the middle and other things. So I think speed definitely matters, because if you run out there with all 88, 89 speed guys, it takes away a huge threat for the defense to be aware of. And now I can sit on all those short routes and you can run your crossers, but at 88 speed, all these 95 speed corners, 93 speed corners, they're all going to keep up with them. So I think it does matter quite a bit, even if it's not something that you use consistently. It's just the threat of it is more important than anything else.
Fair enough.
All right, so I think that's going to do it for this episode. That's going to put us just short of 30 minutes, which is pretty much perfect.
Right in the sweet spot.
Yeah, and with today being the 22nd, I don't think we're getting another episode in before Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everybody in the SML. Hope you guys hope Santa brings you all your toys you want, and I think that's going to do it. So don't forget to vote in the comments what you think the score is. Maybe throw Finn's a Christmas miracle and he gets a win this time. We'll just have to
bring it on. We'll take any type of W at this
That's
point.
That's right. And all the way up there in Canada, you probably have the direct line to Santa. I mean, you've already got the snow, so maybe he can work a miracle close. And you can get a win here. But thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for being on, Finns, and hopefully we'll get the next one in a little sooner once you get another foot of snow and can't go anywhere. But You got anything you wanna say?
Just Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everyone. Enjoy that time with your family.
All right. So until next time, it's Battle at the Border.